Hello, amigos. So, a great philosopher once said that substance is good, but it's the style that attracts. And in this week, I learned about creating styled element with the help of style components. And this video is all about that. Towards the end of the video, I would also discuss my thoughts about style components in general, when they are good, when they're not that good, should we be using in our projects or not. And I would love to know your thoughts about it. So if you agree with me, you don't agree with me, or if you think I missed something, please do mention in the description. And I would love to have your feedback back. And also, if you ask me who that great philosopher was, then I think his name was me. I see you in the coding session. So the cool input which we are going to do in this session are these. If I click on one of them, you can see it goes out in a nice way. And if I move out, then I immediately get a validation that it has to be 6 characters or more, right? I can go again over here with this, and if I go back, the message stays. Notice that the text does not come back on this one. Took me quite a while to figure this thing out, how to do it with style components. I will show you the fix. So this is my test input. So if I do this, the error message goes away. Cool, no? The second variation of the same thing is this one. So it goes not out, but on the border of the text box. And we will see how to create that. The first thing we need to do, of course, is to create our React app. Let's go ahead and I'll call it cool inputs. Okay, great. Our React app is created. Let's go ahead and quickly install the style components. So it will be npm install style components. Cool. Style components also installed. Let's quickly open the code. Voila, everything. Open the folder. Let's go to E. It should be live. Was it live? I think it was live. So let's do select the folder. Cool. Let's do an npm start. Loaded on this page. Yeah, there it is. Let's close Edge and use a real browser. So this one. For those who are accustomed to my videos, you already know I'm a big fan of keeping the code clean. So I would like to clear up app.css because we'll be writing style components, so we don't need uh, these ones. So let's click this, uh, this, oh no, not this, logo, report, setup, all these. So I only keep app.js and index.js in my code base. That's great. Let's go to app.js, remove these 2 lines. Similarly, index.js, we don't need these, this, and this. If I clean it, everything still should work. Apparently, no, I am using logo somewhere, which should be this one. Let's clear this guy. What we need to do is the first thing is to create a blueprint for our input component. So let's go ahead. I'll create a new folder called components. And inside this, I would create the first version, of it where the text goes out of the text box. So let's go ahead. I will name it input text out. Okie dokie. And let's go ahead, create a new file in it, which is input text out, out.jsx, create, let's see, uh, let's see, let's do the plumbing here first. In this section, I'm just trying to see my whole plumbing works, and this JSX file is actually getting loaded or not. So let's go to app.js and I will import it. Normally we should use an index.js file in our components, but for the sake of brevity, I will emit that out. So let's go ahead, use this one. If everything goes right, I should be able to see the word text loaded on my browser. And if we see it, that's what it is. Oops. Cool. So let's go ahead and update this one. And before I go, maybe I would like to increase my size of the font. Zoom in. I think that should do. Oh, no, it's this one. So let's go ahead and incorporate our style components. And as is the case with style components, we need to define our elements where all the CSS will go. We can say const, let's call it parent is style.div. So what we are basically telling JavaScript/React is that whenever I use the parent component, please replace that with an actual div and apply the styles which I will be writing over here. So let's go ahead, let's put it parent. So what do I want to do with parent? I would like to have display as flex direction should be column, and then I can put in some bunch of other properties. Let's go ahead and copy it rather than typing it. The greatest programmer ever, as I've already mentioned, is copy paste. Nothing nothing significant over here. You might be saying, oh, what the hell are you doing with margin 50? We will see that in a minute. It's purely for the demo purposes. In real life, you probably don't need this one. Now, what I'm going to do, my label would be something like this. The input would be created in a way in this kind of a structure. So I'll have a label, which is the actual label element for my, I'll put some text over here, blah, 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 for example. And then I need my input. That's the structure of the complete element. I would also have my placeholder. Believe it me or not, it's not part of input, yes. And then the error message. So that's the structure of the HTML which we are going to achieve. So let me go ahead and define the CSS for my label. And then for my input, I'm going to do, so we don't need this one. We shall see this later on. Nothing great over here. Pretty straightforward. I'm doing some padding on the sides. I have a width, background color, borders none. And whenever somebody clicks on it, I don't have a border over there. And on focus, I don't want to show any border. Pretty straightforward. Nothing new about it. And then I have my placeholder section. I would copy paste that. This we will see in a minute. Let's remove this and this we will see. Let's keep it like this, and I'll explain what magic the rest of the CSS is doing over there. Similarly, I have my error message, which should appear in the red. Let's do it like this. Now, Once this is created, now I can go ahead and start creating my HTML. So this will go away. I would like to have label. Within label, I have my input, uh, and then I have my placeholder. And then there is the error message. Let's see, this is error message. So far so good. Let's compile it and then see if our code is running. It is. So you can see it puts my text error messages placeholder and my input nicely. Let me increase the one. Okay, fair enough. Now the first thing we need to notice, let's have a quick look. You see, all my class names are prefixed with the name of my control, of my input text out, for example, over here. And the reason it's like this is because I'm using the style componenet slash macros over here, as you can see. It is because of this guy. So if I remove it, I will not see input text out. I will just see a random GUID, not GUID, but XYZ blah 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 kind of a random string. Why it is important is for easy identification. The moment you see, for example, an input text out over here, you know which component or which variable we are talking about here. So I always use macro unless otherwise. Let's go ahead. Fair enough. So the first thing we need to do is to replace our placeholder text in the middle, because as you can see right now, it is on the sides. The way to do that is with the help of the position property. Let me show it to you. So that was my placeholder. Fair enough. Let's call it position should be absolute, and that's the reason I had a label over here and the position was set to relative so that all the child I could set the absolute position. Standard CSS, nothing great about it. And then I need to move it to left 5%. I think it will be cool if I can put both of them side by side. Let's do it this way. Nice. So save it. It's like this. I need to move it a bit up and then I will keep a new size for it. So let's put top 23 and font size 12 pixel. Let's say save it. Nice. Maybe we need to move it a bit more up. Maybe I can do it over here. Inspect. That's my placeholder. Fine. Let's say 18%. Perfecto. So and so forth. Good. So we had our placeholder as a separate element. It's a span, so it's an inline element. It had gone on the right. We used the uh, position absolute and then top left, and we moved it into the middle. So far, so good. Now, the other challenge I have is whenever I click on it, this is placeholder. This text should go out. How to do that? And the answer is CSS transitions. Uh, but before we do that, what we need to do is to tap on the on focus event, not event of our input control. Right now, we can write JavaScript, or we could also use the focus selector of the CSS, standard CSS implementation. So I would go to my input because it's on the input of uh, focus of input that I need to do something. And what do I need to do is to say, let me copy the paste. Yeah. For those who, if you're not already aware of it, you can always write pseudo selectors also with styled components. So I would say, and focus span. Let's go there. What do I want to do? So what it means is whenever there's a focus happening on my input, then pick up the adjacent span tag next to it. What I would like to do is pretty straightforward. I would like to move it up further. So top should be minus 25 pixel. I move it more above. I would like to change the font size, and I would also like to change the color, make it a bit more darker. So that should be it, I think. 222. Let's save it. There's a reason why I didn't write it over here. I will come to that in a minute. So if I do this now, perfect. It moves. Nice, nice, nice. But it's not, it's a very jerky movement if you see. Our aim is to move it pretty slowly, right? And what we can do is to copy these three things over here and go to our placeholder and do something called a transition. And then we say, I want the transition to apply whenever these three properties change. And within the transition, I can specify the transition should last for 0.3 seconds. And the kind of transition is ease in. There are different value ease in, ease out, fade in, fade out, all that kind of stuff. You can have a look at the API, but it's this property. So let's go ahead. I'm going to use the same thing for everything, all the three properties. I'm going to copy these things over there. Again, the CSS, it looks difficult, but once you get a hang of it, it's very easy. So for all those who are like me, from who are transitioning from backend and then they see this jazzy effect, I used to get scared. I said, what the hell, how am I ever going to learn this thing? But then once you get into it, it's not that difficult to figure it out. So let's do this. I have my transition. Save it. Oh, it's not that good. Let's see, why did it not go top? My mistake. It's the comma over here. I need to replace it with colon. So save it. Now if I do it, nice. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, there are two things we still need to do. First is, of course, the validation. And then if you see there is a problem, if I say this is my text and I remove it, it still goes back, which is not good. And that the reason for that is because the transition is happening on focus. The moment you unfocus the input, it comes back. So first thing first, first the easier part. Let's handle how our users can, because it's a component, how they can do the validation. So for that, I would do something like this. Let's go ahead and we take the couple of input parameters. One of them would be, what could it be? What it could be? Let's take one of the input parameters as placeholder text so that everything can be, because we want to make it be usable. Placeholder text. Let's come here. The second thing would be error message. And the last thing we want to do is on validation, right? So fair enough, that's my function. Let's go here. So what we can do on input is to say, whenever the input is blurred, we just call my handle focus out function. Now I can define a function which is constant handle focus out. It's an arrow function. For the time being, I would simply call this guy, right? And I will specify my event over there so that anyone who is calling me, in our case, it will be app.js, they can make use of, they can give me the on validation function and I will call them over there. Pretty straightforward. And what do I need to do? Okay. Also for the error message, what I will say is, if you give me an error message, by God, I will print it. Otherwise, if the error message is null, is not truthy, then I won't not like to print my error message, which is pretty straightforward. All I need to do is to use the syntax like this, and it will also work for if the error message is empty. So basically what I'm going to do over here is in app.js use the on validation function and use the error message property to control whether error message is shown over there on this page or not, right? On in my component or not. So let's go ahead over here and say use the placeholder text, and for this we use the error message. Voila, voila, voila. Is it compiling? Yes. Let's go to app.js. What am I saying? So input parameters for on validation, enter some text and error messages. These are the three input validation which we have decided. I will handle the handle validation first. Let's go ahead here and then say so this function actually goes to my component, right? It's my component on blur is calling indirectly this function. So and it will pass me the event. I prevent default so that it does not bubble up. And then I say if the target value dot length is greater than 6, then you set the error messages. Let's go ahead and define our. I'm using, of course, as you can see, I'm using the state use state to handle this. Oops, sorry, wrong place. I copy pasted it. It should be here, right? And now I need to define my state over here. Let's go ahead and quickly do that. Voila, voila, voila. Error message. I think I need to use it over here. Import use state. It always does this. I don't understand. It should just figure it out. You know that since I am importing it, don't write the whole thing. Just let. Can you believe this? Let's go this. Use state from React. Voila. Does it compile? Not really. It's because of this one. Let's call it set error message. I copied it wrong. Voila, voila, save. And handle validation is not defined, of course, because I copied the other one. It should be this guy. Saba. So if we do this, refresh it, everything seems to be okay. The error message is not showing up. The reason is pretty straightforward because I'm setting my error message to empty, and in the first round empty string is going to my input text out. I come over here, since it is empty, I'm not showing anything. The moment I blur it, my handle focus out function is called. So as soon as I take my mouse out or it's not on focus, I call whatever function was called in the input text out, which in my case will be handle validation. I figure out that if it is if there is an error or not on the input text, and then I set my state over there, and because I'm setting the state, the whole return thing gets executed again and my code is called. Pretty straightforward. So let's go ahead and write over here one character go out and I get my error back. If I make it more than one, this is my test, blah 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 blah, more than 6 character, I don't see my error message. Cool. So this way, it's a reusable component uh, for anybody to use. Right. Still, now the bigger problem that somehow this text comes back, and that's not what I like. The way to handle that is to use a reference to the input control. So create reference API. We will see that in a minute. We need to figure out the moment there is some text in the input control, we add a class to it called dirty or checked or has content. And then we use exactly the same CSS properties for our placeholder span like we were doing during the post the transition when it was going up. So if I quickly could say something like, if my input element has a class called dot dirty, right? Then you pick up the next span and always attach this value, these CSS properties. Sorry. Then my goal is made. The only thing I need to do is somehow add the CSS class to my input. The way to do that is to use something called a create reference. So what I would do is, let's go over here. Or maybe we could go here. And I would say, hey, React, please go ahead and create me a reference to give me a reference to my input control. So this is right now, think of it, if you're from C background, think of it as a pointer. So I get a pointer and then I'm saying my pointer is actually talking to ref, that's the keyword which is used to assign references directly. And then I would say is input ref. So far so good. What exactly is this thing? Input reference. You could also think about, because React has the concept of shallow DOM. So all the CSS classes we are adding, error messages, for example, we write over here, these are not getting rendered directly on the DOM. React is maintaining a shadow DOM over here where your all elements are constructed, the whole tree is constructed, and it's at the last moment when the render happens that the actual elements are created by React. So in a way, when you're writing React, you're shielded away from actual DOM. You're not talking to actual DOM. But if you do something like this, ref is input reference, then what we are doing is directly talking to that DOM element. It's a backdoor entry to the DOM. Now, what I can do is, whenever somebody does an on blur, I can add the class directly to my DOM node. So the way to do that, I would say I have my E, then I will say something like this. So e.target.value. If there is some value, you add the class dirty. Otherwise, you remove the class dirty. Pretty straightforward. Let's close it up. Create reference. Okay, create reference. I need to import from here. Let's go ahead, React, and then I say create reference. It's a function given to us by React. Let's do it. Now, if I do this, it doesn't come back. And the reason, again, as to prove it to you that I am not lying, is that a new class has been added, dirty. Again, have a look at the syntax. All I had to do is and dot dirty. So that means and dot is basically the styled components way of referring to that particular element which we want to target. So that's all for this video. We discussed how to create style components, how to define constants, what template literals are. In the next video, we will be seeing how inheritance works in style component, how I can inherit from one style and expand on that. And we will also see something like create global styles, where the normalize.css kind of functionality, which is for all page, all a complete application, not specific to one component, can reside. Uh, and of course, my conclusions about why style components are so good, and some cases where they're not really, I wouldn't say appropriate, but they're not the 100% fit for your organization. But that's part of the second video. A quick shout out to Beyond Semicolon. It's a video blog. I got the idea from the CSS, this cool jazzy CSS from him. If you like this video, complete credit goes to Beyond Semicolon. I will put the link to his YouTube channel in my description. Please do hit subscribe, share, and I forgot the third one. For both of us videos, please do follow. For both of the blogs, please do follow. And I see you in the part 2.